Thanks for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Mark Martin. Today, Israel once again taking military action against Palestinian terrorists. The Israeli military looking to weaken the terrorist ability to fire rockets into Israel, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will strike back against the enemies who attack them.
Israel's policy is clear. Those who seek to harm Israel will be harmed. Those who kill our citizens will pay a heavy price. And those who fire on our cities and civilians will be held responsible for their actions.
A huge surge of migrants expected at the southern border as a key restriction is lifted, leading to concerns about the long-term consequences. Former Fox News opinion host Tucker Carlson announcing he's coming back on a new platform.
Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter.
An amazing story of healing of an 11-year-old girl at the Asbury revival earlier this year. We'll hear how it happened in her own words.
It was, literally, it was the best night of my life. I loved it.
And Dr. Jackie Green tells us about the message of her new book, Permission to Live Free, Living the Life God Created You For.
It began to give me and equip me with the strength to grab a hold of something that I didn't have, which was a boldness to not just know a thing, but to live a thing out.
Those stories and more today on CBN News Watch.
This is CBN News Watch.
We begin in Israel, which has begun another round of strikes against Palestinian Islamic Jihad, this time against its rocket launching sites. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, many Israeli residents on the Gaza border are being ordered to stay inside.
Palestinian terror groups are launching rockets into southern Israel. The attacks come after Israel struck Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket launching sites, designed to degrade the terror group's ability to fire rockets into southern Israel. On Tuesday night, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned terror groups within Gaza not to harm Israeli civilians.
Israel's policy is clear. Those who seek to harm Israel will be harmed. Those who kill our citizens will pay a heavy price. And those who fire on our cities and civilians will be held responsible for their actions. It may take time, but Israel will ultimately reach these terrorists. No one should doubt Israel's resolve to defend its citizens.
The strike killed the 3 leaders, but at least 12 others died in those strikes.
As always, Israel tried to minimize civilian casualties, and the state of Israel regrets any harm caused to non-combatants. The difference between Israel and our enemies is that we make every effort to keep the enemy's civilian population out of harm's way, while our enemies make every effort to deliberately target our civilians. We mourn the loss of innocent lives. They celebrate the loss of innocent life.
Israeli security expert told CBN News that the strikes restored a level of deterrence and that Iran is the power behind Palestinian Islamic Jihad.
Iran is the main director of the initiatives of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ. It's the funder. It's also the training element. I mean, at the end of the day, these terrorists need to know how to prepare a drone, how to arm a drone, how to prepare an IED, an explosive device, and Iranian experts are actually helping them achieve these terroristic goals.
Former IDF international spokeswoman Avital Leibovich says it's all part of Iran's main goal.
The most important message I would tell the American audience is the Iranian presence. In 3 out of Israel's 4 borders, there is Iranian presence, and I don't mean it in a positive way. I mean, Iran is trying to build some kind of a network of terror groups by delivering here arms, strategic weapons, different capabilities. They say it loud and clear. They don't want Israel to exist.
The major question today is if Hamas, the major terror group in the Gaza Strip, will join the fight. That would indicate a major escalation and the potential for many more days of fighting. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Here at home, the expiration of the government order known as Title 42, which lets the U.S. quickly expel migrants under COVID restrictions, may lead to a surge of 1 million migrants at the southern border, prompting a state of emergency in towns like El Paso. While the Department of Homeland Security explores alternatives, concerns over long-term consequences persist. CBN contributing correspondent Chuck Holton brings us this story.
chaos at the southern border as up to 1 million people look to cross into the U.S. as Title 42 expires. While border agents expect a major rush when the COVID-related expulsion policy ends May 11th, the influx along the border has already begun. Agents in the Rio Grande Valley say smuggling organizations are bringing up to 10,000 per day to the border, and that's pushing U.S. border towns to their limits. Here in El Paso, Texas, officials declared a state of emergency May 1st.
We figure that it's anywhere between 10 to 12,000 people that are ready to come on May 11th, May 12th. We do know that there's additional coming right behind them, and we are going to be prepared. I did talk to the federal government the other day. I did talk to the Secretary of Mayorkas' office, and I told them that really we have to change. There's no end game to this, and we can't continue as a city and as a country.
This is becoming a serious humanitarian crisis here in downtown El Paso and many border communities along the U.S. southern border, as literally hundreds of thousands of migrants keep coming across the border, and they end up like this on the streets here behind me. Border Patrol agents are going around and passing out these flyers that encourage them to turn themselves in. And Secretary Mayorkas was here just a few days ago touting his new plan to fix this problem. But somehow that plan doesn't include fewer people coming to the United States. It just includes pre-approving them outside the U.S. and then flying them directly into the heartland of America.
We are reaching the people where they are. It is not only our security obligation, it is our humanitarian responsibility to cut the smugglers out, and that is indeed what we are doing. We are building pathways.
The hope is that as more people take advantage of these pathways, fewer will overwhelm the border. The pipeline of people surging north through Mexico, though, are unlikely to just go back home. Even those migrants arriving in the U.S. are finding things tougher than expected. More than 2,000 migrants now live on the streets in a few square blocks around the Sacred Heart Catholic Church here in El Paso.
Pero este es el primer vez en los Estados Unidos.
Ya había entrado 3 veces.
3 veces. He's been here 3 times already in the United States. Y 3 veces y lo votaron. And he was deported already 3 times.
With wait times for an asylum hearing already stretching into 2026, and from the numbers waiting in Mexico to cross later this week, things here will likely get much worse. From El Paso, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Former President Donald Trump is promising to appeal the verdict against him for sexually abusing advice columnist E. Jean Carroll in 1996. A New York jury awarded her $5 million in a judgment. The verdict was split. Jurors rejected Carroll's claim that she was raped, instead finding Trump responsible for a lesser degree of sexual abuse. Trump's lawyers said the jury's rejection of the rape claim, while finding Trump responsible for sexual abuse, was perplexing and strange, while denying the charges.
What more did he say other than I didn't do it? And he said that on the Roe theory.
Trump himself calling the verdict a disgrace and a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time. It isn't clear what impact this verdict and the former president's appeal will have on his race for the White House. The latest ABC News Washington Post poll shows him with a clear lead over President Biden. Tucker Carlson, who was recently fired from his opinion program on Fox News, says he's coming back with a new show on a very different platform, Twitter. Carlson, making the announcement in a video on Twitter, talked about how the major media often doesn't tell the whole story.
Speech is the fundamental prerequisite for democracy. That's why it's enshrined in the first of our constitutional amendments. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets. You see it on cable news, you talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge. We think that's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We bring some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
Carlson's video racked up more than 17 million views as of early this morning. Coming up, an amazing miracle story from this year's revivals. An 11-year-old girl healed at the Asbury University revival. We're going to hear how it happened in her own words when we come back. Welcome back to NewsWatch. People of all ages flocked to Asbury University when revival broke out in February. An 11-year-old girl named Helen and her family were among them. They were worshiping God when Helen experienced a miracle. Abigail Robertson brings us her story.
When the White family heard about the revival at Asbury University, they canceled their weekend plans, loaded up their RV, and drove 10 hours to Kentucky to witness the move of the Holy Spirit for themselves.
It was, literally, it was the best night of my life. I loved it.
11-year-old Helen White, the oldest of 4 children, described her experience inside the revival.
It was beautiful. It was so simple, such simple worship, but it felt so holy. I pray every night and thank the Lord that I got to go.
While there, Helen says God miraculously healed her from celiac disease and eosinophilic esophagitis, or EOE.
This one guy, he prayed for me of my EOE, and I just felt this tingling in my hands and my feet and my whole body, and I actually was healed.
Helen's mom, Christina, joined in the prayer for her daughter's healing.
I'm just praying quietly and watching her interact with this prayer minister. And she's saying, my hands are tingling. Okay, now I feel it to my elbows. And we would thank God and keep praying. And then she said, my whole body feels like it's electric. I don't have to know what was happening in that moment because I know God was there. I know that was a touch from the Spirit, and I know that He is moving.
The first miracle God performed involved getting the family and friends past the lines, then some of them inside the chapel. As they pulled their RV into the small town of Wilmore, signs greeted them with a message to turn around because the revival was at capacity.
We just started praying and said, Lord, you've gotten us this far. If we need to watch the live stream, we will. But would you just make a way? Would you make a way for us to come and encounter you and to be in your presence?
4 of them set out on foot and were led to a door for students and children.
We walked up and they immediately were like, is there any party of 4 here? And we were right there and we walked right in. It was one of those moments where Jesus was saying, like, let the little children come to me. Like, let the children come to me. And I kind of knew right then, I think we're here for my girls to be here.
They stayed in the chapel for 5 hours, soaking in the presence of the Holy Spirit. And Helen even had an opportunity to read her favorite verse aloud, Psalm 91.
I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust.
What have you taken from this experience?
I mean, I've always known the Lord my whole life, but really, I feel like I met Him at Asbury and really devoted my life to Him here. And so I feel like I definitely took that home. And the hunger and boldness, that too, and the healing.
Christina believes the Asbury revival is just the beginning.
There is a purification that's happening and a holiness that's coming. I think that this younger generation has a huge part to play. I can't be the same after I've encountered a genuine touch from the Lord, and I know that that's true for the other people who are in the room, and honestly, just for everywhere that the Lord is moving.
All of Christina's kids say they felt God's power and presence.
I think the Holy Spirit was definitely there, and it was really cool.
Even the ones who didn't make it inside.
It just felt like God was in that place, even He didn't have to be in that exact room, but He was also sharing His love outside of the room.
Christina tells CBN News she has a sense of expectancy without expectation that God is going to keep spreading this revival around the country. While the Whites are glad they went to Kentucky, they believe revival can break out anywhere. They're hoping and expecting it continues to spread to more college campuses, like right here at Regent University. Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Still ahead, our Studio 5 conversation with Dr. Jackie Green about her new book, Permission to Live Free, Living the Life God Created You For. We'll bring you that interview right after this. Thanks for staying with us. Dr. Jackie Green is a wife, mother, pastor, dentist, and author. Her latest book is called Permission to Live Free, Living the Life God Created You For. She sat down with Ephraim Graham to talk about the book and her life.
He called us fearfully and wonderfully made. We are masterpieces of the Most High God. And if He calls us good, who are we to say anything else? Who are we to say anything about the master of the universe creating what He desired? Why would we doubt? Why would we misstep? Why would we hesitate to step up and take our rightful places of owning a life of permission?
I hear you talk a lot about permission, whether it's weekly, online.
Yes.
Why permission? What made you feel you needed that? What happened?
I believe that so often we live in a world where we're always searching. We're looking for validation. We're looking for someone to affirm. What I found is as I began to build my relationship with God and began to receive a love that was like nothing else, it began to give me and equip me with the strength to grab a hold of something that I didn't have, which was a boldness to not just know a thing, but to live a thing out. So many of us are living, but we're not living the way God intended us to live because we are handing over a thing that God gave us from original intent, which was dominion and authority. His righteous DNA lives on the inside of us. And I think that when we can tap into that, I believe that we own a life that is so free, so fun, so not pretend, where we're actually able to be honest and we're able to bless people by right of freely being who God made us to be from the beginning. And that for me is what permission was all about, me being precisely and fully who God made me to be.
There's something you said in that struck me, and it was in a message you were preaching, and you may not even thought about it, but it stopped me in my tracks. It was like, God has given you power over hell. And I was like, huh? What? Is that our authority?
He says that the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives in us. That's the same power that was in Jesus that allowed him to go to death, hell, and the grave to lead captivity captive. And he says that, yes, I'm going to ascend, but I'm not going to leave you without a gift. He came in flesh to dwell among us for us to know that we don't have to live defeated or we don't have to live shying back from who God made us to be. And so, yes, we have the ability to speak a name, and at that name, demons and darkness backs up because of the name that we call on.
You sit here so perfectly manicured, speaking in authority, and then to hear you say you didn't have the boldness to live free?
Man, I know the God that has equipped me to find myself in rhythm with him and in pace with him, where I can live and move and have interviews and have my being with him. And he will fill my mouth just as he did with the disciples of the early church, the apostles of the early church. They said that they were ordinary men, but somehow they were saying things that were extraordinary. I believe the same truth is for every ordinary person watching this segment, that maybe you are just going into a classroom to teach, or you're showing up to be a good wife to your husband or a good husband to your wife, that God can meet you in all these ordinary things and do extraordinary things through you, simply because you don't hold back your natural nature and you allow the grace that is so sufficient, the grace and the supernatural power of God to meet you in the natural and allow supernatural things to be birthed. That's what I feel that people see now. It's not anything that I have of my own. It's by right of me plugging into something that is so much greater than me.
Beautiful. So now we're looking at this book now, but you actually wrote this book some time ago, because I was looking, I was like, is this the second book, or is this when did you initially sit down to do this?
So we actually wrote the book. I wrote the book in 2018. And I released it self-published in January 2019. We were so excited. The Lord was just pressing on me that women needed to hear my voice and women needed someone to show them an example of freedom. And so I stepped out there in obedience to do the thing. I released it, but it was really just an act of faith because I didn't have time to promote it. We were also in very early stages of our ministry as a church. And so I didn't have the ability to give what I would have wanted to give behind it. But what I did give was enough. And that's what I want people that are watching this today to understand, that there are times that you might give this small thing that you might feel is so insignificant and there's no way it's going to make its mark on the earth. And God is saying, but you gave me obedience. And I tell people this, that inside of obedience, I believe everything that you need is found. I believe that the favor that you need, the person that needs to make the book deal. I actually gave this book and somehow it landed in the hands of a literary agent that I never had met, that I didn't know anything about. And she was so convicted by the message of permission. She was saying, I have to get this in the hand of a national publisher. And she did just that. It goes from this thing that I just released in faith to the Lord, saying, God, I believe that you'll bless this small thing, break it and multiply it, and that you'll bring forth a harvest. And what we're sitting inside of as we release this book now, nationally released by Thomas Nelson, is the harvest of what he releases on the other side of giving the seed of obedience, because it does multiply.
Dr. Jackie's book, Permission to Live Free, Living the Life God Created for You, is available for you wherever you purchase or download your reading material. Coming up, an incredible birthday in Africa of 9 children who are all born at once. We're going to bring you that story when we come back. Stay with us. An amazing birthday celebration in the African nation of Mali as 9 babies turned 2 over the weekend. They were all born together, broke the Guinness record of the most living births at once. Relatives, friends, and even their pediatrician attended the celebration. The children chose miraculous as the theme of their second birthday. Their mother said it's their favorite, and she added, I thank God for allowing me to celebrate my children's 2-year birthdays at home in Mali. The mother had been expecting 7 kids, but 9 were born after she was transferred to a clinic in Morocco, where she gave birth to 5 girls and 4 boys. Hope she has a lot of help. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Or you can talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope to join us next time. Have a great day.